Welcome to our next breakout session, What's Next for DEIB. Here to moderate is Lattice's Senior People Partner, B. Nance.
All right, welcome everyone. So glad to have you all here today. My name is B. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm a people partner here at Lattice. And we are super excited to talk to you all today about DEIB and what's next. So as I'm sure you all know, there's a lot changing in the external and political landscape when it comes to DEIB. So we're going to dive deeper into what exactly is changing with DEIB, how it's evolving in organizations, how it's being reimagined, how it's being reshaped, and so much more. And I also want to level set and say that today's conversation isn't just about what's being rolled back or what's being limited, although that is important. It's just as much about as what's still in our control, what we can influence, and how we move this work forward. So I'm so honored to be here with a thoughtful and experienced panel today. I'm going to have them introduce themselves for you all here shortly. So if you all could share your name, your pronouns, your title, your organization, and Regina will have you kick us off.
Awesome. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Regina Ross, she, her. I am the Executive Vice President, Chief People and Operations Officer at Opportunity Finance Network based in the Washington, D.C. area, and a member of the Lattice Chief People Officer Council. So glad to be with you today.
Hi, everyone. My name's Allie Shulman. My pronouns are she, her, or you can call me Beyonce because of this screen is amazing. Hey, wait, did anyone go to Cowboy Carter? Me too this week. I feel like Beyonce. I work at change.org. My title there is Director of Engagement and DEI. I've been there for almost 4 years.
All right, hello, wonderful humans. My name is Erica Coffey. I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging at Khan Academy. My pronouns are she, her. I'm gonna have the nervous sweats within like the next 5 minutes. So if I talk fast, it's like, but thank you all for joining us for this talk today.
So as you all can see, we have a fun panel here today. So let's go ahead and dive in. So before we jump into the meat of today's conversation, I would love to just ground us a bit. Behind every DEIB effort, every policy, every initiative, there are people and real life human beings, and the path into this work can look very different. So I'd love for you all to just start with what drew you to this work initially and what has kept you committed. So I'd love to hear from all of you, and we can start right here with you.
All right, so I'm an engineer by trade, and when I graduated from engineering school, my first job was with an organization, a global French-based organization, and there was an effort to attract more black engineers. I was one of the only black female engineers. Engineering already is a discipline that you don't see a lot of females in. And so I was asked to participate in a minority recruitment task force. I was a part of the inaugural diversity steering committee, so a lot of good frameworks or just structure. But let me tell you what happened. So when I was trying to convince, if you want to attract more black engineers, let's recruit at historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs, I was told by the head of HR that there would be less quality talent coming from HBCUs than majority schools. Mm-hmm. I was in an emerging leadership program, and so sitting around the table with the president and CEO of the company, I won't say the name of the company, but I asked, here I am, just bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, hey, why don't we have any women in executive leadership or on the board of directors? And the president and CEO said, because women have failed to rise to the occasion. Okay, this is an organization that had been around for years. So even though they had these task force and steering committees, I saw that there was a mindset that did not believe that people of color, that women would be able to succeed. And so I'm like, okay, we need to change the mindsets. Fast forward to today, I'm fortunate that I'm in the C-suite, and the statistics of black women, particularly in the C-suite and women in general, is very low. And so I am still in so many spaces, from my time in engineering to my time in leadership, where I have been one of the only or few in those spaces. And I made a commitment that I'm going to do the work to open the door for other people who look like me to be in those spaces. So that's why I'm passionate about DEIB.
when I started my career, I didn't have an intention for a career yet. I don't know about you, but I started and all I had to do was, I had to figure out how to pay my bills. I wanted to live in New York City, so I was like, well, I just need to pay my rent. What can I do? And this person I knew from university said, you really like people. You love to talk to people. You should be a recruiter. And I was like, okay, what's that? And I just knew that it was a foot in the door at a job, and that's really what I needed. But what I didn't know is that it was going to set the tone. The experiences I had at this first job were about to set the tone for my whole road ahead. At this job, unfortunately, I experienced discrimination, sexual harassment, bullying. I had just come out to my close friends and family, and part of me was like, I can't come out at work. For some reason, I don't feel safe doing that. And 10 years ago, this month, 10 years ago, marriage equality was passed, and I was expressing joy in my office that day. And a coworker came up to me and she said, you're going to hell for supporting this group. Meanwhile, she didn't know I was about to go down to the West Village, sing Born This Way with all my friends. Like, girl, you don't even know actually who I am. But I was protecting myself because no one was there to protect me. I couldn't have someone to raise these issues with. And I said, surely there's a job for this. And I wanted to get my foot in the door in an HR role in-house, just to start trying to do that job. And so I did that, and I started to sprinkle in little DEIB things like lunch and learns, harassment prevention training. And slowly and surely, I didn't even know it was happening, but my why, my root, has led me to where I am today, overseeing engagement in DEIB, which is something I didn't even see coming, but I knew was my calling. So feeling really lucky for that. Thanks.
So my start's very different. I was actually a Spanish major and a Spanish teacher, started off in public school. I taught for 20 years, I think. That's a long time. And somewhere in between, I decided, I think I want to be a principal. I had been told, you should be a principal. I was like, sweet, pay for it. Well, it was public school, and they would maybe reimburse me enough for 1 credit, possibly 2. And I'd always said, well, being a teacher doesn't pay enough to make that debt go away fast enough. So I went to a private school where they said, we will pay for your master's. You owe us nothing in return. So I had a plan. I was like, all right, get my master's, 3 years, get it paid for, and then I'm gonna go right back into the public school, be a principal. But then I was an outsider, and all the jobs went to internal people. I mean, I stayed every day, several times a day, checking all the counties around me. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to stay here, which was fine. But being at a private school, and a predominantly white private school, I was the only teacher in the high school that looked like me. And so I started getting all the questions, and not necessarily in a bad way, but I was like, you know what? If you all see me and you're gonna ask me these things as if it's my job, then I need it to be part of my job. Mm-hmm. And so I pushed, I had to advocate for myself, and I became part-time Spanish teacher, part-time director of community engagement. If you remember your teachers, you can't do another job. I can never tell a parent, I didn't grade your kid's test because of the other 50% of my job. And so I had to push more. And then I became, I don't know, a whole bunch of titles, I can't even tell you. I literally had to ask our HR person to send me a spreadsheet of all the title changes. So fast forward, we get to COVID, we get to Black Summer, George Floyd, all of that. I became part of senior leadership team where I could actually start to implement the change I wanted to see. I became director of inclusion and global engagement. I worked with our partner schools from 11 different countries, 12 schools, but 11 different countries. And so I'm finally able to make change, right? Things I say aren't just a suggestion, but I've finally been given the permission to say, no, this is how it's gonna go. Saw things going well. Then there were some more changes in leadership, and I kind of saw the writing on the wall. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna put this out there. Who wants to hire a teacher? I was fortunate that Khan Academy looked at my resume, thought it was okay, and I was like, woo, teachers are amazing. I always knew it. And so now here I am as the director of DEIB, doing what I'm passionate about. And really comes back to is with the Spanish, it wasn't necessarily the language, but you can't learn a language without learning the culture. With over 20-something Spanish-speaking countries, you learn a lot. And it took me a while to realize it was really all about the people and learning and spending time with other people that made me want to be where I am today.
Awesome.
Thank you all for sharing those stories. I think they're all really good reminders of how this work can be both professional, but also really, really personal as well. So with that, I do want to turn the page a bit and shift and zoom out and talk about the broader landscape. So as we all know, and as I mentioned earlier, the environment around DEIB is changing rapidly and often in ways we can't predict or can't control. And in the US specifically, we are seeing a lot of pressure to step back from DEIB. So I would love to understand how is it showing up in your organizations and how you're making sense of that shift. So maybe Erica, I can start with you on that question.
Okay, so we're fortunate enough that we are not accepting money, or we don't accept money from government entities, so we don't have to adhere to a lot of what they're saying. It's not impacting us on a budget level, but that doesn't mean there aren't pressures. I believe what most of our pressures are internal, because people are feeling a certain kind of way about what's going on, and they often look to the job to solve their personal problems or to be a part of it, and we can only do it to a certain amount, right? We can tell you what mental health things we have available, what services there are. We can make sure you're reminded about the days off, the FTO, but what we can't do is, if you're worried about what happens if you travel to another country, we can't solve that answer for you. And so it's been kind of challenging. One of the things we did, we had our on-site actually here in San Francisco last month, and we have employees from other countries. What we did was, global engagement is my background. I was their 24/7 person on call. I looked up information to the embassies. I kept check on laws. I kept check on the validity of articles that were coming out about people being turned away at the border. And we wrote letters. So we did everything we could on a business level to give as much comfort as possible. But at the end of the day, given what's going on with our administration, we can't solve everything, and we shouldn't try to. And honestly, it's not fair for people to look to a job to solve all their problems, but we should at least be empathetic and provide support.
Yeah.
We're actually having an offsite in July, same thing. We have people coming from Germany, people coming from Mexico, having to share a guide like I've never had to before. So just be proactive. But what I'll say, similarly, we're not up against constraints that other companies might be up against right now. Change.org is a private company. For those who haven't used Change.org, basically anyone in the world can go on this platform and create the change they want to see. You create a petition, you send it out to the world and see who can sign it, and try to get decision makers to make a change that you want to see. So when things started to come out in January, February, and employees started to get nervous, my first goal was to make them feel like they had the information they need about what we were doing internally. Q1 was all about reaffirming our commitment to DEI. Q2 was about putting together a long-term roadmap and communicating the elements of that roadmap to folks, keeping an open door for people to ask questions about internal culture and how things might change. What's interesting about change.org is that we are an open platform. Someone can go on the platform and create a petition that says, roll back DEIB at change.org. Truly, that can happen. And I have to understand that the platform is not something that I can control or limit. We want everyone to have a voice and everyone to have an opinion, so long as it follows our guidelines. What employees find trouble with at your company, at mine, maybe at your company, is how is our internal culture going to shift? Are we rolling things back? And it was my commitment and the company's commitment to say, we're not. And here's what that looks like. Our internal culture, yes, it's at tension with the platform, but that doesn't mean we need to do the same things. Here's what we're committed to internally, reaffirming those commitments, showing how it's working, and talking to the employees who feel like they need more information. And so it's just about transparency during these times where employees feel like they have no sense of control. Not all, but some, and especially those who care about DEIB.
So my story is very different. I joined this organization 6 months ago. I was excited about joining Opportunity Finance to scale and actually double the size of our workforce. Opportunity Finance Network is a intermediary, community development financial institutions, CDFIs, where we take capital from bigger institutions and then we redeploy that to smaller CDFIs so that they can have impact in the communities that they serve. So we are like money in, and then we send money out to organizations that cannot get traditional financing. And a lot of the communities that we support are in rural, native, Black and brown communities, and so that's the work that we do. So when I was hired, it's because we had a $2.3 billion award from the EPA to focus on the clean, the climate investment accelerator, part of the greenhouse gas reduction. So if you've been following any of the news over the past several weeks, you know, like we don't have access to that money because this administration doesn't believe in climate, doesn't believe in green, and so those funds were frozen. And it hasn't gone, it's gone even further where now there are attacks from this administration against CDFIs and labeling CDFIs as being DEIB programs and woke initiatives, okay? So, I was really struggling with this, y'all, and I had to get support from my coach and others, like, okay, what do we do? Like, you know, and what I have come to terms with is that we are redefining our alliance. Those are the terms that, you know, we talked about, because I remember one day after talking with our legal team, because we had to respond to the EPA, and there was all these things that were happening. They were trying to say that there was waste, fraud, and abuse. And so we have now filed a lawsuit against the EPA because we don't have access to the $2.3 billion that we were awarded based on a very competitive process. But in this process, we were having to like scrub our website and tell our members, our 500 member organizations, that you've got to like take the DEIB out of this, and because we had a list of terms that the administration was looking for, diversity, equity, inclusion, marginalized, like all these things. This is the work that we do. So here's where we are. We're still doing the work. We are still doing the work. We are still doing the work. And it's about redefining our alliance. And so I was talking to a consultant who's been in this industry for a while. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Why am I here? You know, and she's like, well, Regina, and she told me a story of some of her ancestors who were able to escape the Holocaust, and they were helping others find refuge. And so she shared with me this matrix of voice over impact, okay? And so there are times when maybe your voice can't be loud. Maybe we got to go through our website and take out all these terms that the administration is looking for, but we're still having the impact. And so what she shared with me is that during that time, they didn't wave their flags and say, oh, look at what I'm doing to help Holocaust victims. Look at what I'm doing to protect, you know, this community. And she even talked about even the Underground Railroad. Sometimes your voice has to be muted, but you're still having the impact. And so that helped me to realize, okay, maybe we can't say these things. Maybe I can't post. Like I even struggled with, can I put this post out there? Because now the organization that I work for, and most of our funding comes from the federal government. But we are still having the impact. We're doing the work.
Period.
Love it. I love the point around, you know, voice over impact, and kind of on that thread around impact. I want to talk about data really quickly, because I think one thing that has been true, especially for us in people-related roles, is using data to make the case for the value of the work that we do. And with DEIB being under even more scrutiny, I feel like the need for compelling and clear metrics becomes even more salient in these times. So I would love for Erica and Allie maybe to speak to this. Like, what metrics or data have you found most helpful in showing DEIB's business value when talking to stakeholders who may be skeptical or, you know, concerned about potential legal risks?
Data helps tell the stories that you want to tell. So of course we all have stories. We all have our mission and the roles that we play as HR leaders or DEIB leaders, but we need the data to back it. And what we found to be really helpful is to calendar out every single time that we're going to get that important data that tells our stories. It starts with onboarding. We do a 30-day onboarding survey. One of the key metrics I look at there is, has the person made a friend? We actually ask, have you made any friends? We're a remote first company with employees in over 13 different countries around the world. Wow. How do we get them to meet and hang out remotely and connect? We are really intentional about that, and if we're not doing it well, we'll see on that survey. And we'll elevate that. Because if you don't have friends or if you're not connected at work, you're probably not performing at your best. It all goes back to performance with the C team, right? You want to show that our company's actually performing well because, of course, we have great talent, but they're engaged. They feel like they belong. So it starts with onboarding. Then we do a 90-day check-in, and that's with the manager. Then after that, we have a whole cycle of engagement and DEI surveys. We do a quarterly engagement survey, which some say that might be too much. I've said that, but my manager said, let's keep trying. But it's helpful. I just feel like we're getting data every single time. We're hiring, so we're getting new data every time right now. Then we have an annual DEI survey where we dive deep on psychological safety. We dive deep on connection, on belonging. We take all this data, and then I build a report for senior management. I share this with them. I say, here's what we're hearing, here's what we should do, what can we commit to? It's not an accountability that I hold solely, it's something that you need to make sure you're holding your senior management team, your C team accountable to, or else the work might not happen. And the way you show why it's important is you show the voices of your people. So that's the data on the employee life cycle. And then there's other areas to gather too. We have community resource groups, employee resource groups, and I make sure all of our CRG leads are just keeping track of their meetings, attendance, the amount of people that are in their groups, just generally really helpful data points that I can raise to the C-suite at the end of the year and say, here's how we did this year. Here's everything that we did, and here's why it's helping the organization. Let's continue to invest here. We pay our CRG leads. We give them budget because it's a real investment. And then finally, a data point that I want to make sure everyone's doing is when you're having a big company-wide event, like a restructure or anything that impacts all employees, like promotions, running disparate impact reports to make sure that no group is disproportionately affected than another is also key to showing why having the data is important and tracking equity in that way. So there's a ton of ways you can use data, but those are a few that I wanted to highlight.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I've been asked a question just for fun. If you could go back and do another job, what would it be? I think I'd want to be like a detective or a spy or in the CIA or something. And in my spare time, I love to do puzzles. So I'll tell you a little bit of all that. So I feel like for when you're in charge of EES results and surveys and all that, you have to play detective because you don't get all the pieces, right? And so we know when we get these surveys, we want to be data-driven but human-centered. How do you get the human part in addition to the comments you get? And for me, part of that is showing up. And that's showing up to meetings. We're virtual. I show up in a lot of meetings. I may not say anything, but if I'm invited to attend it, I'm going to be there because it's going to give me the chance to listen to what other people are saying that I may not have the opportunity to listen to. So beyond the EES results, I believe it's also watching the chat when there's a company update, things are going on, who's speaking, what does it feel like? It's always looking out for those nuances that happen throughout all sorts of interactions. I also like to look at participation, who's there and who's not. Not that it's mandatory, but if we had a manager training that was optional, I want to see, well, who was there? Who wasn't there? Who consistently is not there? Tie that to when we have exit interviews. If I'm doing an exit interview and it comes back that this manager is a part of the reason of why I left, I'm going to go back and look at, does this manager ever show up for training? Does this manager ever respond when questions are asked? That's the putting the pieces of the puzzle together, because it's really hard, especially being remote, to get all the pieces at once, right? You have to go out and find them. And so I'm probably one of those weird people. Exit interviews make me really nervous because people are brutally honest in them. And I'm sitting there taking notes, but at the same time, they are so eye-opening. Even though our attrition rate is very low, I learn information every time that I can then go back, confidentially, of course, when we make our quarterly reports to SLT, here's what we're hearing, and here's what I believe we need to work on. And so that's, to me, another point of data.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I want to unpack this thread that I'm hearing around employee voices, the voice of the employee, because I think metrics tell one side of the story, but it doesn't tell the full story. So I would love to hear from you all on, what's the role of employee voices in protecting or reigniting DEIB work, and can you share examples of where that has been effective? So maybe Regina, I can start with you.
So it looks different for our organization because the amount of scrutiny that we've been under, and just to make it real plain, we have had media that has looked at our company website, they found our staff names, they've gone to find their LinkedIn posts, and then they've taken quotes from their LinkedIn posts and put it in an article. So we made a decision to take our staff, non-executive staff, off of our website because they were being targeted, all right? And it just wasn't fair. So now, how do we enable our employees to have a voice? Internally, there are things that we're doing. We have many more manager meetings. We have done some different things in our staff meetings to give employees an opportunity to have their voice and ask questions in a safe way because they can't do it outside. We've had to give them some advice and some guidance on social media because we know that they've been targeted. And it's interesting. It goes back to the impact versus voice. And so now I was just one of the vice presidents who was actually targeted by media and is now very quiet on LinkedIn and very quiet on social media. They are leaning into volunteering for community service activities that are important to them for the DEIB communities that they really want to support. And now our culture connection crew, we renamed it. So we have internally a culture connection crew that is also curating volunteer activities and events to give other employees space and a place to go and do the work that's important to them in a safe way because, again, they have to express their voice and we want them to still be able to do the work that's important. So that's what we have to do. Awesome. Yeah.
I love that. We have culture captains, so CCCs,
Yeah.
CC, it's fun. Make it work. Get creative, that's the whole point. Mm-hmm. No company is going to be the same. I'll tell you something that we did. A couple of years ago, our culture was fractured. Leadership turned over. We just went through our second restructure. The union formed, which is healthy, but that's a lot of change, and that's a lot to deal with. And so we decided to put together what we call the staff board. The staff board is 5 employees. They're not leadership. They were nominated by their peers, and they serve in their regular jobs, of course, but they spend about 3 to 5 hours a week building transparency and trust with staff and leadership. It's worked out beautifully, and it's good for us. It might not work for everyone, but what's been really beautiful about the staff board is that we've dedicated each person to a specific role that we think our company really cares about. One person focuses on culture. One person focuses on DEIB. One person focuses on AI, a lot of what we're talking about today. And they're abreast of every single thing that we're doing that can impact the company that's pretty big. So if there's engagement survey results, I run them by them. I say, look at all of this, it's anonymous, of course, but here's the data I'm seeing. How are you all feeling on your teams? Or we're rolling out this policy. This is a huge policy. Or we're rolling out new values. Can you all look at the comms? Is this going to be clear to folks? Are people going to get this? Is there something missing here? And this staff board has really held us accountable to being the voice of the employees. It's all about employee voice. They are the voice. I can't talk to 180 people a day. They're on all different teams too, in all different countries. And so they're able to tap into what's going on their team, and they come back to me. And they're really trusted. They were nominated by their fellow team members. So we've been loving this process, and I'll just say again, this is a job. so that we pay them for that role. We pay CRG leads. If you can get that budget, I know it's hard, but if you can advocate for it, then these people commit on a level that they realize, wow, I'm really valued in this role. You know, I'm doing this because I love it and I care about this company, but I also feel valued by this company.
Yeah, and I'll say as far as employee voices go, do they have an opportunity to learn how to share their voice? And I think a lot of companies may miss that piece. One of the things I've been working on at Khan Academy is that we have a shared language so that we're all speaking the same thing. A more concrete example is we use crucial conversations training, and my first was to roll it out and to facilitate it to our people leaders. And now we're rolling out to our individual contributors because we want everyone to know how to have that crucial conversation, and that when I say my intent is, okay, I know where we're going. I know what that means when we have this meeting. We've also worked on, so we have our DEIB steering committee. We just had it for the 3rd year, heading into the 4th. They are the eyes and ears throughout the org. We have engineers, content creators, executive assistants on it, and we meet every other week, and they come through with anything they've heard, any rumblings, you never know. But from this group, we've done things such as created a course called Belonging at Khan Academy, based on examples of things that happen in our organization using our own class. And so that was 2 pieces, right? 1, you have a class on Belonging at Khan Academy, and 2, you get to know what it's like to take a course as a student at Khan Academy, which is really fun. Another thing we realized and created was we have a confidential feedback form. When things happen, how can you make your voice heard if you're a little nervous? And that form only goes to myself and the employee experience manager. We then look at it and decide, oh, this is simple. Like one time it was the closed captions were missing. As a person with hearing issues, I was really upset about that, took care of it. Sometimes there are things that come through, we're like, okay, this is a bigger ER issue, and I'm gonna have to let you know we need to pass it on. But at least there's a way for people to submit information. And we were also very intentional with the word confidential, because there's some things that cannot stay anonymous, right? If you're sending me something about harassment, I cannot say, great, that just stays between me and you. I have to put it on. And so we went around on this quite a bit. And the confidential feedback form has been used quite a few times. And that's a piece of, I think, evidence that people were looking for a place of where to go. And so if you want to care about employee voices, make sure you have the mechanism in place for them to actually share their voice.
Right. Awesome. All great examples. And I think all these are really great efforts that you all are embedding within your organizations. I think the next question I have is like, how do you make sure these efforts actually stick within your organizations? Because there's so much external volatility. Every time you turn on the news, there's something, different. So how are you designing your DEIB efforts so that you have that longevity and that staying power?
I can start. We actually have a 5-year strategic plan for DEIB, and it is communicated out. Made some changes to it. At first we had 3 parts of it, which was We Start With Me, which is all about values and behavior alignment. The second is Seek the Peeps, which is about hiring and retention. And the third was to prioritize our learners. What I've realized, I'm only in my 2nd year at Khan Academy, is that prioritizing our learners should not have been under DEIB. That belongs to the org as a whole. So I've effectively removed it from our strategic plan because it didn't make sense, right? Our committee was not in charge of that. And so that's actually allowed the DEIB steering committee to focus on the 2 areas. And so with the values and alignment behavior, being able to go back to everything I roll out and say this is part of our 5-year strategic plan gives me such a grounding and such a root to hold on to that it's hard for people to be against it. Same thing with We Seek the Peeps with our hiring. If anyone has any issues with it, guess what? This is part of our strategic plan, and we're going to move forward with it. I think one of the questions that came through from Slido was, have you changed your efforts? Fortunately, we have not had to. And I know that's not the case for everyone. We've had to more double down and let people know things aren't changing, we're staying the course.
That's awesome.
Same, 3-year roadmap on my end though. 5 years, that's impressive. I can't think about tomorrow. You know what I mean? But the whole point is you got to make sure you keep it flexible. So it's like a little asterisk at the top. This is a 3-year roadmap, but there's things that we have no idea are coming. Just like these past couple quarters, It has changed the game. And so you have to kind of shift with that. So creating a long-term strategy, communicating that to senior leaders, and a condensed version to the rest of your staff so they're aware, and then making sure you can always flex, but come back to it. That's your guiding light. Speaking of guiding lights, our North Star at change.org is our values. That's where we've made the biggest investment in longevity and how we're going to see behaviors that we want to stick. How many people at your whole company can rattle off all your values? You think every employee at your company can rattle off? How many employees do you have? 98. That's pretty good. Wait, how many employees do you have?
We have 250.
And every employee knows every value?
I hope 95% at least.
Amazing.
Wow.
I think what HR lead, that is, I was hoping no one would raise their hand.
They got you, Allie, they got you.
You ruined my bit. I think what I'll say is we want everyone's hand to be raised. At Change, our investment in values starts from day one, and we actually created a whole onboarding offsite. Every single day is a value. And what people don't know is like at the root of this week-long offsite training, it's a DEIB training. We teach people how to work across difference. We go through culture mapping, if you're familiar with that book, Culture Mapping, because we have employees in so many different countries. We bring in speakers like Loretta Ross, who will teach people how to call in versus canceling or calling out. These are behaviors that align with our values, but what people don't know is like we're setting the behaviors that we want to see, having difficult conversations, balancing candor and care. One of our values is candor, but you can't just say it, you have to practice it. So we invest in bringing people together. Every single person at the company has been through this retreat, and we speak the same language now. So I'm not saying like not everyone at every company has the budget to do this, but if there's ways that you can have a little segment on your ATC where someone plays out an example of a difficult conversation, or if there's an optional training or a speaker series that you can start, these investments provide the longevity that you need for a healthy culture and a culture rooted in DEIB, even if they might not know it's actually happening.
Awesome. All right, so kind of pulling that thread of longevity through, like this work is a lot, and it's a lot on the shoulders of the people that are doing it and carrying it forward. So I do want to shift to sharing just advice that you have for HR and DEI people who may feel disheartened or burnt out by what's going on currently. Like, how do we stay in the work without losing ourselves in it? So I'll start with you, Regina.
So I'm pulling on my military background. I'm a wartime veteran, and I just say this work is hard. Live to fight another day, right? So there are times when you will go forward, other times you need to retreat. And so understand, how are you doing, making sure that you have community, making sure you have the tools. And there's times when you just have to retreat. So I am not going to charge this hill. I'm not going to continue to engage in this fight. I need to rest. I need to retreat. And one thing that I say often is that stand on the shore of safety. So imagine someone is out there drowning in shark-infested waters, and you're bleeding. Do you want to jump in those waters with them? No, you got to stand on the shore of safety. Throw out a lifeline, let them grab hold to it, and then you pull them from the shore of safety. Don't jump out in the shark-infested waters while you're bleeding, because both of you will die. So live to fight another day.
Exactly. And if you're wondering, period. I'm always like, everyone says to me, you like to run towards the fire. And I'm like, maybe I should stop. Maybe I should not. But I like to do that. And if you like it too, you're probably experiencing ups and downs in your career. And if you're wondering, should I keep doing this? Keep doing it. See this as your sign to keep doing it. Because there's days where I question it too, but I come back to my why, the story I told you at the beginning. What has shaped me to want to do this work? Think about your why. When you're having those deep moments, think about your essence. What do you bring when you walk into a room? What's that energy? What are your unique traits? It's probably why you're in the role that you're in. So keep going, because guess what? What happens when a pendulum swings one way?
Swings back.
It swings back. Thank you. Yes, it swings back. And so just expect that to happen when you're feeling like you're tired or you're feeling like hopeless. It will swing back.
this work can feel so personal, and sometimes it could feel like you're being personally attacked. And I have to remember, oh, it's not me. It's that they crazy, right? And one of my colleagues, Jessica, she'll say, "People be peopling," and then that is what we say in our HR teams. Those are really y'all. People are peopling real hard right now. But then I also had to remember, like, I work to live. I do not live to work.
Yes, yes,
right.
yes.
And so at the end of the day, I cannot make my job my life. There has to be a stop to it. And one of the things I noticed, being a senior administrator in a school during COVID, I was on 24/7, right? Your cell phone went off, we got to hop on Zoom. Cell phone went off, check your email, because someone got COVID, this happened in that room, everything. And so I got into this bad habit of thinking I always had to be on for work. So what I've done now is, I'm in my office, and this is funny because even my dog knows. He can hear me close my laptop, and then he comes into the office, right? And so I'm like, dang, even the dog knows it's the end of the day. And so I've had to make it a habit of, I don't just walk away from the laptop. That joker's getting close. I turn off the extra monitor. I don't want to see any light glowing from the office other than the sun. And that's made a really big difference for me. But I also say another habit I had was, well, I do have my work email on my phone. I tried to take it off, but then I realized it took off calendaring, and I'm not good at calendars, so I had to put it back on. And so I've had to make a mental adjustment. If I feel the need to check work email because I'm bored, like, what is that about, right? I'm bored, let me see what came through. No, because sometimes I would see a message, and I'm like, oh, now I can't sleep. And so I've had to come up with an alternative. So instead of checking the email, let me read something else instead. Let me check something that'll bring me joy or ground me rather than going. So that's been working. So you have to find a balance. You have to know when to stop. Because if you keep letting people come at you, they're going to keep doing it.
Exactly.
And then also a book I'll recommend that really changed how I see people is called What Happened to You.
Yes.
So rather than asking what's wrong with you or what's wrong with that person, it's what happened to you, because we've all carried some sort of trauma, some sort of baggage that goes with us every day. And so sometimes someone will come at you like, dang, what's wrong with them? Oh, nope.
Yeah.
What happened? What happened to them? And that helps you have a little bit more empathy towards it as well.
Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce Perry?
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I tell you, if you listening to it is really good. I
is.
listened to it first and then realized I needed to have the hard copy in my hand, so I highly recommend that.
I love this panel, by the way. I'm going to miss y'all. But to close us out, I do want to look ahead. So, like, what gives you hope for the future of DEIB in the workplace, and what should we be paying attention to? So, I don't know who wants to start that. Whoever.
I'll start.
Okay.
So I am hopeful that it's us as individuals that we're committed to doing the work. It doesn't have to be the government that says it's okay or not okay. It doesn't have to be our corporations or whatever. But I see you and I want to see you. So I'm hopeful that there's enough of us who just want to do the work, who want belonging, who really value equity and inclusion and diversity, that it doesn't have to be woke or not woke. It doesn't have to be popular or not popular. Like, we're committed to doing the work. We're committed to making an impact. And that's how we show up as individuals. And then that's going to spread. It's going to be infectious. And people will catch on to okay, we're doing the work because we wanted to do the work and it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I'm hopeful because you all chose this room. Thank you. Thank you for being in this room. You care about this work. You are making impact.
Yes.
I don't know what your role is, but just know that if you're doing people-related work, there's DEIB in everything that we're doing, from compensation to benefits, to performance management, to growth pathing. I could keep going, but I don't want to because I want you to be able to talk too, and I know we're running out of time. What I want to say is I feel really excited about the future. I think companies will continue to work on this stuff, regardless of if it's on their website or not. They're going to be thinking about how do I integrate my multinational communities and be able to have cultures who are so different work together and be high performing. I will see probably psychological safety being made really important because that is another driver of performance. So we're just going to continue to see the evolution of this work, and it's not going away. We'll be here.
Yeah, I think okay, this is where people messed up. I get excited. All right, so a lot of times inclusion is kind of seen as this pillar by itself. I think with all these pressures, what it's making us do is be sneaky. And it's making us do what should have been done anyway, right? Which is that DEIB is embedded in everything you do.
Yep.
It's what your website looks like, right? It's how you recruit. It's what you offer as benefits. If you have it embedded, which is the way it always should have been, they cannot come and pull it apart.
Exactly.
Because they would literally pull apart your entire organization. So be sneaky. Get it in there, right? Told you I wanted to be a detective or a spy. Like, you got to find your way to get in there and make it so that if you pull that thread, the whole sweater falls apart.
That's
so you
right.
can't even pull it. Because no one ever says or gets mad, I can't believe your organization made me feel like I belong, right? That's not a thing.
How dare
And
you.
so, like, when we think about DEIB, to me, the D plus the E plus the I equal the
That's right.
belonging. So if we can keep all those as the foundations to get where we want to be, they can't undo it.
Yes.
You know, you get to tell them, come at me. Like,
That's
it's not
right.
happening.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, to wrap us up, I hope that this panel did offer some encouragement, some fresh perspectives and insights that you can take back to your own organizations. What I'm personally going to take away, and what I hope you all will as well, is that the world is changing around us, granted, but the core of what we're doing still remains the same. And there's something deeply reassuring about that. We're still centering employee voices, we're still making the case for equity, and we're still helping leaders manage it through change with integrity. So I hope you find comfort in that. And I also want to give a huge round of applause to this amazing panel.
Thank you, B. Oh, that was standing O right there.
I love the standing ovation.
I love it. Beyonce.
I'm not dripping in sweat like I thought.
A huge round of applause for B.
Yes,
This is
B.
our first time moderator.
Thank you.